Okay, once again, welcome back, everyone. So to the last panel of today, which is called like an impulse session, and with that, it's a format that I invited Daniel to in order to give us, first of all, like a little bit an opportunity to summarize the day, something that is generally quite nice, but of course from a subjective perspective. And maybe also setting some provocative questions into the space from what came up during the day, so as a kind of like a frame of it in a way, and for steering other possibilities of discussions. Of course, here now, because of the amount of people, we kind of have it still have to make it kind of in this classical format of one person in the front and you are in the audience sitting, but still kind of just feel really invited to engage also in the discussions and raise questions or respond also to remarks. Let's start.
Yeah.
And please introduce yourself shortly. Thank you.
I will. First, I will introduce myself, but first a few comments. I will. I mean, it's an hour set off in the program. I don't want to talk in an hour because what I feel in the space is that there's so many discussions and so many topics now. So I would like to open up as soon as possible. But then also I know myself as what's your name, Fabio? Yeah, Fabio just said that. I mean, time. It's hard to control it also. So I asked my two dramaturgs here to keep the flow going. So the minute I'm boring, it's their job to tell me, okay, that's exactly. We can also help if you feel the need. So open that up. My name is Danjel Andersson. Some people know me in the room. I used to work for a long time in Sweden. I'm a Swedish dude. Last 8.5 years, I was the director of MDT in Stockholm. I just started as a director of Dansahallarna. I say just started, it was actually in May. I started 50% and then full-time in August. As a director of Dansahallarna in Copenhagen. So I'm very busy with trying to figure out what the needs are in Denmark. That's what my head is doing. I also wrote that on the on my piece of paper, and also some of my colleagues from Dansahallarna here, and we're busy with asking those questions a lot, like what's the vision of Dansahallarna, what's the strategies, how are we going to do that, what are we going to prioritize, what's over what, and why. So this is what my practice is right now, just where my headspace is. What I want to use this time, because I'm very much into urgency, so I really want this little hour to be important for us. I don't know if I can facilitate that, so I also need your help. And what I wanted to start off doing, I really loved having that list because it's helping me out. So we keep it. Yeah, thank you so much. So that was the day. I'm supposed to summarize it, and also, yeah. Most of you were here all day, and what I want to approach dramaturgy, but maybe almost even more, like we've been talking about a little bit, curating. As also a dramaturgical practice. I started off with my curatorial practice really young as a DJ. So I think a lot around curatorial practices as DJing. I also saw them preparing for DJing there, so it kind of makes sense. And as a DJ, when you're playing your music, you have your artistic integrity that you want to play your stuff. And you listen to music in a certain way because you know you're going to play it to other people. And then you have your hits that you know will work. But then you kind of do what you want to do until it's time to play the hit. And if that doesn't work, then you're perplexed. You don't know how to do it, and you're not a good DJ anymore in your own head. So for me, and also dramaturgy, that's a sort of a dramaturgy of an evening. And if you try to bear with me and see that as a playlist instead of a conference, I try to figure out what's the hit. And the hit then have to be defined, right? I mean, hit in a dance floor is quite easy. If you got the room dancing to what you want them to dance to, that's the hit. But here I would say the urgency, no? Like what we really need this hour to talk about. And I also want to be a little bit democratic, so I'll go through a little bit what I heard, but then go back to the hit. And in that short amount of time, it's almost impossible to do. So you bear with me and help me out. There's two different audiences. It's the one, okay, when is the hit going to be played? I'm going to stand here and wait. And the other guys are like, let's try to get the floor going so that the hit will come. So be that audience, yeah? Thank you. And of course, I mean, a playlist also, just like a conference or a dramaturgy or a curational session would have a starting point where you go out a little bit slow, no? I don't think we did today. Tempo, I'm trying to speak slow now. I don't know if the people that know me maybe hear the difference, but that's because the tempo has been really high today. Also dense in relation to content. So I felt sometimes that I wanted to go deeper into or understand what was said, but then something else really smart was said. So I'm trying also not to do that, not implicating I'm saying anything smart, but at least slow. And the first two with Pia and Tina was really, I would say many of the topics raised there was super intriguing to me. And I took notes. I normally don't, but I knew I was going to do this DJ set, so I took some notes. And we started off with Thomas and the circle, right? And what it does, what it can do, is like the starting point. And we have to think about this a little bit, what it is. And then we went into to Pia's, and for me, it was a lot about, where we are now. We're talking about the dictatorship as something long ago, but we also see all the political powers really confronting us on all angles. And we going really fast-paced towards many dictatorships in our own countries. So taking that in, the creativity of the human beings when we're not free, where does that go? That's what I took from Pia's discussion. And that I also want to end up with that, because that's the urgency of mine. We'll see where we end up. But and Tina was talking about lots of things. I wrote post-dance, because that's my topic. I had done conferences around post-dance, and post-dance in relation to non-humans, where we're talking about what's dance, what's contemporary dance. In Denmark, you also use the word, which is pretty strange to me that you still use it, but modern dance, right? Yeah. But in English, at least, we say contemporary dance, but then when we're talking about worms doing choreography, I mean, if you place that in the relation to post-dance, things start to happen in my head, at least. And also the always agreeing was interesting. But then Tina said what she wanted to talk about was equality. We didn't get there. So that's maybe the hit we're going to play. We'll see. Social change through art and equality, is that even possible? We didn't actually talk about that, but that was what you threw out. And what Pia threw out was free art. Should it be free? We didn't play that record either. But then we went on, and then there was this interesting conversation with Jesper and Bara. And for me, there was many interesting things in that conversation. And some of them internalized in my practice, that especially Bara was talking about, in relation to how we work with artists as organizations, as facilitators. In Sweden they actually came up with a word that doesn't exist. So maybe the Danish people will understand it, and maybe we can find a translation into English, which is möjliggörare. Could be facilitator, which is a person that makes things possible. So instead of you work on that. It's the cryptic song that nobody gets, but I like. Yeah. And then, I was also supposed to be a little bit provocative. And the interesting, I don't know if you heard it, but I heard it. And I have much respect for that position. So I'm not saying that I'm never there. But the non-answers. Is Jesper in the room even?
No, he had to go, unfortunately.
Oh, no, that's not unfortunate. And we can talk really...
We will still record.
Okay. Damn. Okay. No, but I really heard Bara pronouncing a question that she, from my perspective, sounded like she's been thinking about a lot. And I heard a non-answer when it came to how do you work on trying to find audiences that are not, the same, sort of. Well, much more well phrased than that. And the position, and I would say that there was a long answer, but there was a non-answer. It was like a political way of saying, we don't, basically. And you can criticize Jesper for that, but it's not interesting to me. It's more interesting for me to internalize that and say, how would I answer? And would that even be truthful, And what do I actually do? And bring that into my practice, because I think it has to do with the polarization, and it has to do with the political situation, and it has to do with, in long-term, dictatorship.
And guilt.
And
guilt.
And guilt?
Of guilt, of lacking, of falling short.
Yeah, maybe guilt. Maybe guilt, yeah. Where are we now? We are at song number... So we're heating up. We have Fabio's work that we also got a chance to talk about, which is interesting that the work was actually shorter than the conversation, which is normally not the case, right? The conversation is normally shorter, and I do like that. And I forgot to say a thank you note also. As the tempo goes up, I now take it down. Because I wanted to also reflect a little bit about the dramaturgy of a conference. And one thing that I appreciate a lot, I know it's impossible, because all conversations go on longer than you would expect, but that is sufficient amount of breaks. And did you notice the candy came out now? Yeah. When we really needed it? Those things are very, very important, I think. But one thing that's even more important is, I think, this. Because this is not something that just happens. It's just the first name and not the organization. Which is fantastic, I think, because that makes us, that implicates that we're equals. Even though, of course, we all know we're not in hierarchies, blah, blah, blah. At least it's something that we've been thinking about. So I wanted to say that and acknowledge that and thank for that for all the organizers. And during that conversation with the workshop performance and conversation with Merel and Fabio, I don't know if you pronounce your name right, Merel? Yeah. It's a hard one. Yeah. Sorry, it's my fault. Things. I mean, there were also time. Assumptions were mentioned and left. That was super problematic for me. Which is interesting. Like one thing that Fabio said, at art and society and dance and audience. Just assuming that that's an equation that works that way. Let's say art and society and dance and audience. we have to reflect. For me, that's super problematic. Also, the definition of an audience. Who is the audience, and is that actually? I mean, society is a bigger. It's really, and the danger, I would say, because this is an assumption. I'm not saying it's wrong, but I'm saying the danger there is that if you say it that fast, and you take those categories and just put them together, it becomes like the truth. And words count. And those are complex things. That's also adding to, from my perspective, the polarization. Because you're including people that actually are not included here. Audience is much smaller than society. Also, I have a problem with the word audience. We could talk about that maybe also. Maybe that's the hit. And then we had the very friendly conversation between Jeppe and Andreas. And I was provoking already in that conversation, asking the question of, I mean, of course there's a choice. You have an artist that have the whole system that close to them, that can use them. That's such a power tool for an artist to have. It's also a great thing to have, but there's a choice involved there. And of course there's a power situation here, even though you've developed a practice that's also developed friendship. So I don't think we need to get too much more into that because I already posed the question that I had. But then, safe space was an important word, but Thomas already took that up because that's an important word to think about. Also when it comes to art and dictatorship. Because I do think that's going to be an important practice in many of our lives, to find those safe spaces. And then I was thinking, what is said and what is not said? I do think the atmosphere here was really honest, and you've been trying, everybody has been trying to really do this for real. And for real for me is urgency. It comes also from hip hop. Doing it for real is very important. Like you go into a conference and you take part of it, and you're not just critically absorbing it and then going home and talk to your friends about how bad it was, but actually engaging, trying to make it better, which is great. But what is not said is also super important in relation to context. Because, I mean, Jesper tried, I think, put it in a Danish context, because many of these things are fundamentally problematic here. And we could also talk about that. And then we had the discussion, or it popped up, the what's dance and gatekeeping. I don't know who said that, talking about who has access to the production. And that's also super problematic in Denmark, because there's so few of us. I'm one of them. That was your topic, no? You brought it out. One in the audience did. I can't remember who did. No, in the discussion, yeah, here, in this room, yeah.
Which production?
The means of production.
Okay.
The means of production and the gatekeeping of keeping it. And in Denmark, there's so few gatekeepers, which means that the chosen few that gets through the gates are too few in Denmark. I would say. We could talk about that. I get question marks. Then we have, for me, the hit record. I mean, it's two. One is my urgency, which is how do we even get there? How do we even get society involved with the arts and the polarization? You see what happened in England just the other day. I mean, if we read our papers and we follow our Facebook, we have the feeling that breakfast, no way. Brexit, no way, it's not going to happen. And then the polls come out and it's a landslide, no? And it's not that in Flanders that the government don't have You know what? Everybody knows what goes on in Flanders a little bit. Yeah, major cuts in the free sector, and it's not that. The politicians have democratic backup to do that, and that's our all of our responsibility. How do we break those borders? I don't know if dramaturgy is the tool, but that's where you're implying a bit. If that's the bridge of the gap of Fabio, I just feel that we need to have a real conversation about what they in Denmark, they call it elitism here a lot. I'm not really agreeing with the term, but that what we do only engages the few and not the many. Let's call it that. The few is better than elite, because I don't agree with the term. And if so, and in Denmark I think very much so, a lot more than in Belgium, where I mean in Belgium, all the productions, they tour so much also in the whole country, and the whole country is very small. And internationally, a lot more than they do in Denmark. But still they get these radical cuts. So that's one thing that I would like to think about together, if you're willing to. I don't know if that's the hit record, or reopen, now Jesper is not here, reopen the question of Bara, which I felt was I would even like to, if possible, hear it again and try to figure out, maybe imagine what the good answer would be. And if that would be something that would interest you.
Maybe not like good, but something that at least process or like.
Yeah, for me, good. Yeah. I don't know what good is. No, but an answer that actually answers. And then a second thing I would like to do now is turn the lights on, if possible, because now it's like. And I asked Siri to do, but the only way to put the lights on is put the working lights on. So if that's okay, yeah. and yeah. We should, yeah, here we go.
Hello, my name is Helle. I would really like to ask one question that I don't think has been asked at all. Who is society? Because society, that's very big, and is it my responsibility as an artist to please or get in contact with all of society all the time? And this is because, I think a nuanciation about who is the audience or society and who am I speaking to or who do I want to speak to is also a question.
Yeah, for me, I agree. But all these terms, we're using so many terms, and we cannot get to like one answer. But I do agree that that's a problem. Also, the idea of audience. I mean, I work actively with a term that I use, which is non-audience, which I find just as important. So the non-audience is the ones that actively choose not to be a part of it. Which is fine. I mean, just think of football. I mean, whatever. It doesn't have to be art. So you see, and I'm a non-audience to many theater productions. I know who it is. I've seen it just doesn't interest me. I choose not to. And there's no advertising information that could change my mind. Maybe if a friend of mine said, please come because I want you to, and then maybe I would. But I'm an active non-audience to that. And sometimes even political, saying, I don't want to go there, I don't want to support them. I've been doing that practice for a long time in the City Theatre of Stockholm because I've been against their politics. So I was not going this, I was a non-audience. But then there's the audience that we do not reach, and that's another, possible audience. Those we talk about a lot, but the non-audience is also important. And then the exclusive audience, the ones that very few want to see very specific work. That's also very important to be a part of it. And then there's the historic audience. I'm a big fan of works I've never seen. Many works that I've never seen. A man walking down the side of a building, Trisha Baum, 1971. I wasn't there. But could we go now to the Bara?
Yeah, I thought to just exchange then the you to Jesper to we, as
Yeah.
collectively, to ask it for all of us. So yeah, it's actually what you just asked. That was also my question. Who do we consider society when programming work for the local audience? In Aarhus or in any local local context. Is it the white middle class people we know, or is it including all the people around? And then I asked Jesper if he could share with us his specific strategies to reach out to a diverse audience. And my reason for asking that is also that it's something that I'm also busy with, and I do not either pretend to have an answer, but I think it's a question that I think it's important that we collectively think on with together.
Yeah.
It's complex.
And I think also one important thing, which also answering a little bit your question, as an individual artist, what responsibility is that? And what is the responsibility of the different institutions in different contexts? Because, I mean, Aarhus is a specific context. Like I'm the director of Danjel, who has a national role, whatever that means. And I mean, all these have different. I mean, so you have to link that to your. And I'm thinking that, I mean, every artist cannot do everything, but put together as a map, maybe we should. And of course, the higher you are in the overview, so I can do a lot more projects than you can do because I don't do them myself. I just put them in the program. So then, of course, I have a bigger responsibility to cover a bigger scope of society, I would say. And then the people like Tina that's in the Arts Council selecting projects that will have funding, they of course have even bigger responsibility and so on to forever. But still, would anybody want to jump on the?
Yes. Actually, just a short one, but also because in relation to this topic of the conference, also dramaturgy. And yes, indeed, as you proposed, it is also one part of that symposium is for me also to ask, yes, it is not only the responsibility of the artist, but also not only of the curators, but in how far can it also be the or is it the responsibility of dramaturgs also? If we consider it as a practice of interlinking art and society, of establishing common grounds, not only within artistic practice, but also in reaching out to audience or to society. And then that back to safe zones, and does it also mean that we have to find a safe zone somewhere where it is unsafe? Do we need to go there? Do we need to challenge ourselves? So just to bring that also in. But any other thoughts? Yeah.
No, we're talking now a lot about audiences and getting diverse and inclusive audiences. It's quite a big question, and I'm not here to answer it. But I do know, or I also don't know, but I do think that when we have structured and organizations, which is very homogeneous in terms of, you know, white, middle class, elite, it's maybe quite hard to. I think we focus too much on audiences, getting diverse audiences, instead of getting a diverse, inclusive ecology.
And you are Danish, or are you?
No, I'm Dutch, living in Berlin.
Dutch living in Berlin, because that really shocked me coming to Denmark. I went to a place called Mors. The Danes know, and they say it right. So yeah, Mors. Yeah.
Sounds like a venue I didn't know of.
No, exactly. It's a village actually. But the city of. Is it? Yeah, Nyköping Mors. Yeah, and there they have you tell it better than I do, but they have a cultural meeting every year where they talk politics, and most of the people there are either people living there on the island or close by proximity, but mostly the cultural field go there, and they have seminars from Copenhagen, but also from Aarhus. I saw Jesper there. Yeah. Also you're from Waters. I can't local. I'm not local yet. But I was shocked. First of all, I had the presumption that we've come further in feminism in Sweden than we have in Denmark. That's my presumption that I came here with. So I was expecting all male panels everywhere. I was surprised. It was not that way. Also, many of the artists that was emphasized were women, and the panels were quite equal. The only panel I saw that was only one gender was the one about children's dance, and that was all women. Otherwise, it was both. But no.
There was one on education.
Oh, I didn't see all.
Which was all men.
So sorry, but it's like 200 seminars. I was there one day, and I saw like 16 of them. So, of course, there are exceptions to what I happened to see. It was all random also. But what you just said really shocked me, because it was all white. Like everywhere, it was all, and all the rooms I've been in since then, it's all white. In Sweden, it's mostly white still, but there's at least more than one monoculture. And from my perspective, that was shocking here. So I think you're absolutely right when it comes to that. And how to do it, it's a different story.
Yeah, and I think I also don't know the answer, but I do think it's also how can every one of us that's already there and has a position and has different powers can take some sort of responsibility in and it's about background, but it's also, you know, there's like the whole intersectional approach of gender, of background, of the skin color, of the age, of the class. You know, it's a very complex situation, but I think we shouldn't limit it to audiences because it gets quite presumptuous. Is that the word? No, it's like, well, I don't know the word, but yeah.
Is there other hands? I give it just like that.
I also have a comment because I also happen to be at Morse at this cultural meeting. And one thing that really struck me, there were a lot of artists there, but they were all placed in the position of sort of fitting into to the framework that had already been made, and nowhere, to a very limited degree, the artists were actually the one asking questions or taking over the responsibility of how to organize this, how to rethink this whole thing. So it's all the time it was like the politicians, the responsible, and the directors, and so I was thinking also the problem of the artist today seen as some sort of special group that has to be protected all the time and only can thrive in safe spaces. So I think what happened to the artist as a more activist, I know it's difficult, but I still think we have also to be aware of how we are thinking of the figure of the artist today. And I think really the artist should take over Morse and totally make a revolution there. So that was my input.
Make a revolution. Yeah, thank you.
Sorry. If we're talking about the audience and in a way reaching out diverse, so inclusive audience, and then so it has been stated that it is the responsibility of the artist, and I just wonder if that's is it the responsibility of the artist?
Who stated that?
I actually think you kind of said, and then Thomas repeated it and even put the dramaturgs in it, in that responsibility. I just wonder. And then actually to Bora, I want to ask, because in your talk you also spoke about how you think about the audience, right, through the whole process. And then I wondered then who is the audience you're thinking about, and how do you know which audience is going to reach your work? So these are...
Could you hand her the mic? Thank you.
Thank you for that question. Yeah. I'll try to keep short because I feel also I've already had a lot of space to speak. I mean, I'm always searching ways to be more and more inclusive in that sense, because I find it lacking. And I'm very happy that there came also this comment now, sorry, just to answer to her also about also on the other side, I do not mean to only speak of that it's about the audience, it's really about the whole ecosystem. For me, it's a shared responsibility. One specific project where I wanted to address a specific audience in relationship with my collaborators, two Iranian artists, Masum Jalali and Adil Samir Mohammadi, which is nice. And Nina is sitting here with me because she's Iranian, and she's been we know each other for some years because I really have a trajectory there. And for us, there was also this question of, because in Iran, dance is prohibited. So what has happened is that there's also been this underground scene emerging, a very important scene, because it's also just very important to have freedom of expression and to have spaces that things can emerge. But then a lot of the artists there are also questioning how do we then reach the wider public. So what we thought out together was then this, that we thought it would be interesting to do a project that is really meant for the wider public, and it meant that we are able to tour it legally, so to do the work in official spaces. For me, that was also important because I also presented my work in underground context. In official context, I've been censored, so I'm also familiar with that. Not as familiar as them, and I will still always, and I'm still the elephant in the room, still when I go there, I will always be in my trajectory, which I hope to continue for years to come. But then we thought to work with the censorship in terms of then working with then the common body that is then allowed in the public space there in order to find a commonality. And then it was a challenging process, and I also constantly even questioned my role in that process, because also who am I then still as Icelandic woman, have had the privilege to study dance, in dance there doesn't even exist a university education for dance. Who am I in that role? But somehow I just found myself in that role and in that dialogue, so you're constantly trying to listen even more than you act. But then through that project, we created something and a dialogue, and one of the scenes is with shadows, because also women and men are not allowed to touch on space. Sorry. Yeah, sorry. But just to say, can I wrap up? Yeah, I'm sorry. That's why I thought I should maybe not continue to speak, because I already had my whole platform here. Yeah.
No, but I also asked you to, so then don't feel sorry. I mean, this is the hit record, but we also want to. We asked.
Yes, I lost a bit my train of thought. Maybe we could speak also more later, but because it's also something that matters a lot to me, and evidently. So I lost a bit my track of thought. Anybody?
Yeah.
Yes. I'm sorry. Of course.
I don't know in which case we're sacrificing quality of content over quantity of opinions and ideas, but I think it's very relevant what you are saying, and what sort of struck me, what you mentioned, Danjel, about the conference, and what I'm hearing also is that this thing of white people in positions of power, and in this country, I don't know if anybody has the numbers, but I assume that it's maybe like 80% homogeneous. No, I don't know.
Do you mean the country, or do you mean the art institutions?
The actual population.
Yeah.
So I don't know if in terms of immigration, where it's also something to consider. How do you become more inclusive? Maybe for example, how would you encourage people of color to participate more in educations where they can go to actually an art education, or be part of or be interested in that in the first place, and therefore be in those institutions. So it's I think it's also about, I don't know, maybe making an effort to include artists of color into the programming.
Yeah, the programming is, I would say, the easy part. As you also say, it's easy in relation to it's just to do it, but then starting hiring people of different cultural backgrounds into the institution is a bigger process, because somebody has to leave and somebody has to enter. It's just not so simple, and also as we know from the struggle of equality between the genders, is also, quotation is one way of doing it, and other ways of doing it is more, but you have the conventions, and those are super strong, and you have to work on it consciously and have the discussion going. And I think, I mean, good examples is if you go to London and see how they work with junior producer programs for people that don't even know what the art form is, and so they can start learning, and then in almost like a school situation, they get to know the art, but then the institutions get informed because you get a viewpoint from somebody that is fresh outside eye, like a dramaturg, that comes into a process, and it becomes a safe space of the theater, but they can say, well, this text means absolutely nothing to me. What does it even mean? And that's information that we can use. So this conversation needs to start also here, I think. And I find it my responsibility to apply for money to make a program like that. So, I mean, it is, you have to do stuff. And I've learned that from criticism year after year, and I've been saying a little bit what you're saying. People have to apply to the schools and all that, but that's not happening. So everybody needs to do what they can do. Bring a friend, you know.
Going to quickly add to this, like from what I've seen anyway in Copenhagen is that the artists of color are maybe drawing towards each other and therefore like supporting each other's work anyway, and it keeps divided.
True.
My name is Nina. I like the idea of the collective curating also. We know it a little bit more from visual arts, but as artists we are also able to curate, I'm sure. So to create opportunities for each other, but also within institutions, I think would also be an interesting way to follow.
I agree.
Yeah, I would just like to mention that, of course, when we talk about different perspective or inclusivity, we often talk about race a lot, and this is super crucial. But the other thing that also in my local context, for example, is very important, if you talk about elitism, I'm not sure how to pronounce it, is about talking about, in the Netherlands, we often talk about high education and low education, which slowly is transferring into talking about scientific or practical education or other ways to avoid sort of pronouncing the gap somehow in the education. But I feel this is an interesting element also in terms of which audience do you get in, because often it's the high educated people that come into the arts, at least in my context, that come into our festival also, whereas the people that actually stay in the region and perhaps over time could become the most loyal audience, for example, for the festival, are, if I can use this term, practically educated. And then what is art to them, or like what, how do we then, and what do you program, and do you program differently or not? And what is then, again, I mean, we spoke about it in a small formation before, what is quality, and also then what is considered knowledge, etc. Like, for me, there's a lot of questions around that still. I see you have a hand.
Yeah, well, we have a mic over here also, so we start with that, and you can pass the mic to the hand.
My response is very simple, with some basic comments and questions, which are how self-aware are we of the power that we do have? How comfortable are we to give it away and let it go? How comfortable are all of you to decenter yourself from the conversation of dance in the world that we live in today?
Thank you.
It came into my mind what Tina was talking about this morning, about how as an artist you go for a project out and you're using people, let's say, for that project, and then you disappear kind of. And then it brought me to a question again that we ask all the time, for who are we creating art, which we're talking about right now. And then maybe we should also expand that into the notion of how are we creating art for whom? So is it really, now I was thinking just talking about programming, should we keep the structure of the program that we know maybe I don't know how your process is going, and I have no idea about all this organizational stuff.
That's a different conference. Yeah,
I know, but still, like, how do we need to work with these people that we want to reach?
Yeah.
Can we keep on going out for one small project and work on that for a few months or a year? Or how can we create an ecosystem to be sustainable within the arts somehow?
But also the responsibility of, whom do we really...
You don't even speak, you're the dramaturg and you speak without a mic now. This is not possible.
Yeah, but I was just thinking about this. Is this like
mic.
a possible solution to kind of rethink what a project means in a broader sense?
I think this is very true. I think this is a joint responsibility instead of putting it out on each little project, having to, you need to go out and do your målgruppearbejde. I'm being very sort of down to earth and stuff like this, where on the other hand, if we have a national sort of communication with the two stages we might have for dance, or maybe
stage,
or collaboration with other stages around the country, so that in fact that the institutions that we do have, they also maybe can support each other, and that we live together instead of always thinking, here I am and I have to really suss out who I am talking to with my work, instead of somebody with an overview saying, I have a program here, I have a dramaturgy, I'm touching this part of society, I'm maybe trying to reach out here, and that we have a real dialogue going on.
I think so. I think ecosystem is one of the words I work with most. I think that's a very good term to use in relation to arts. Now it's so many people.
I'm
short with Fabio?
Yes, I try. I disagree on something, so talking about disagreeing, but I'm doubting my disagreement. But I try to say anyway.
That's scratching, no?
Because I totally understand the high purpose of the conversation that goes down to, and I am just a little bit disagree in the way we're talking about the artists or the creators, and I do not believe, or I maybe I'm very naive, and probably I am, because I also declared where I am in life. But I do not believe that Tina started her project with Worms to reach out an audience. I believe that her path has developed her interest into that and made her meet that for a genuine interest in that after people have taken, or after maybe the audience or reaching out has come, and now we keep on talking about creating the art for. And I don't know, is it very naive or very old-fashioned to believe that we create art that we are interested in, and that matters that hopefully are society related to society? I think any artist anyway has that interest, but it comes from them, not from that kind of altruistic approach. Maybe it's absolutely untrue, and I really want to know if it's wrong.
But is there one truth, really? I don't think we should look for a truth.
No, but I think we are talking as if that's the way.
No,
the way the sentence sounds.
I think that's an allergy of yours that you're hearing, because I'm definitely not even thinking it. But maybe some people in the room are, and that's also okay, because it's different approaches, I think.
Okay, it's on.
But I do think it's. We have a microphone here first. Yeah. But I do think that there's also space for that, people really going into their thing and then finding people that are interested in that thing. That's also in there. But you still want, our art form is dependent on the other. Otherwise it's not, but the other could be also a person watching your YouTube link 20 years after the fact.
So there's extremely many interesting questions here, like what is a dramaturg and how do we work and who do we do art for? And I totally agree that we need to create more diverse ecosystems and thinking in diverse audiences. But another thing, and that's maybe another axis or another viewpoint and a huge topic as well, just to open up on that as well here at the 11th hour,
seconds of the
is
hour.
that in a Danish elite magazine that just came to the members, the Dansk Magisterblad for the people educated on universities, there's an interesting article about Danish women in high positions of theaters and art institutions in Sweden.
Okay. In Sweden, yeah.
And
There's 3 of them.
Didi, Gide, or Kide, for those that know them. That's what the article's name is. And they summarize, of course, roughly within the short article's span, how the differences are structurally between Denmark and Sweden. That in Sweden, they of course experience things about work culture and what you complain about, or are you very polite, or are you very blunt, etc. But the interesting thing for me there, for today, was that they encounter a very big difference between measuring, counting, measuring in this country. And in Sweden, we don't, they say, count so much how many audiences come. It's more a dialogue-based thing. It's a thing about having a local identity, of being proud of our culture, and a meeting place. I don't know if that grants a more colorful appearance in the audiences.
But this is getting worse and worse.
Probably,
but you're ahead of us.
I just think that structurally we have a problem in Denmark because we are caught in counting, and that ain't gonna change anytime soon. Sorry.
That's very true. I think we're about to wrap up, so I'm going to steal the last minute or something. Sorry, but good. It was sort of a. You had your. No. Half the room was objecting. Sorry. That's also the role of the DJ, like last song kind of thing. Even though the dance floor is really on now. Just one more song, please. No. We have to close up. Last call, especially in Sweden, we're very strict on last call.
And we have to.
Yeah. Yeah. So wrapping it up, it's still my question. I mean, all of us. Yeah. But you have to take it. I don't think we do.
But this is what we've been talking about all the time, right? That we feel like art should reach out in society.
No, but I would say that's not what we're talking about. But maybe that's what we're saying. I would say what we're talking about is that we're seeing a tendency in the world where art is being attacked by the populists, and they're winning everywhere. And at some places it's been turning more positive, but they have been destroying a bit, and other, like here, or other places like Sweden, it's really going down the dump fast. And you could say that for many places. And that is a fact that people that are voting do not care about the art part of that budget. Maybe they would, but the populists are using that because they want the attention they can get from the art field, and they're calling us leftist, liberal, all that stuff. And we need to have an approach, and I think the approach that we can have, and maybe dramaturg is the savior. I don't know. Thomas would like to.
That I don't think.
But I think for this urgency that sits within the art that we are all here believing in needs to meet the voters so that they do not vote for the populists want to destroy that and see it as precious. As one part of society that's super important, but it's not outside of society, and it's not the only thing in society. It's a part of society. If that breaks down, everything breaks down. Again, the ecosystem. That would be my end note. And we will continue in the bar. I have the microphone. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Daniel. Thank you very much, everyone.